Hello everybody, here we are today talking about the Columbus Blue Jackets and why they might want to try to make some moves to help their goalies going into next season. So before we do that though, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So during the course of the season, you'll hear teams talk about positives and negatives over the full 82 game stretch. Now, at this point, I think it's safe to say we can talk about some of the negatives with the Blue Jackets this year as they again failed to qualify for the playoffs. And one of the things we could talk about is whether or not the goalies are holding this team back or if it's team defensive structure, team play, all those things. So looking to start off, they are a side that if they give up 5 goals against Carolina Hurricanes in their final game, will join just the San Jose Sharks as the only 2 teams in the league to allow 300 goals or more this season. That's not really a good thing. Looking at the 5 goalies that they've used this year, all 5 have a goals against average that is above 3, so that's not really good, and just barely are able to have a 900 save percentage for the team. So other goalies have something lower, some goalies have a little bit higher. I don't really feel too confident about that, but now we get to talk about if it's just them or if it's the guys in front of them as well. So at all strengths, the team allows the second most shots against per 60 and the third most scoring chances against per 60. 5-on-5, ironically, is the same thing here. And looking at something like goals for percentage, this is where I guess if you're looking for something to be a little bit more optimistic about the state of the team, their goals for percentage is significantly better in terms of comparison to the San Jose Sharks, which sits at about like 35%. The Jackets are about 46%. But I got to be honest with you here, when you're still getting dominated, especially at 5-on-5 play, and you're not picking up a lot of wins, you could probably care less about the goals for percentage and are more focused on how you're better suited to get into the playoffs. Now, the PK is kind of an interesting deal too here because the PK percentage is 76.2%, which isn't really great. Again, the defensive numbers aren't really positive. However, one thing you can look at here and say, well, this is good, is they don't spend a lot of time in the box, as they spend way less time than teams like the Anaheim Ducks in the Florida Panthers. We've talked about the Ducks, and just about everybody's talking about how the Ducks can't stay out of the box this year. Columbus kind of the opposite of that. The only problem is they're still giving up goals at a high rate and still struggling to keep chances away. They struggle a lot off the face-off circles, keeping off chances there, and in full strength too, it's just, pretty much all red where they're just peppering shots. But another thing too is this team doesn't really generate a lot of goals on the PK. It's not like the Philadelphia Flyers where they're first in the league. The Jackets aren't. So if you're giving up a lot of goals and you're not really scoring a lot of goals, that can kind of be a bit of a problem. But you can see from what I'm talking about here, giving up a lot of quality chances, they are making it hard for their goalies because they are just getting peppered all the time. So you could probably point out to this and say, well, it's not just the goalies. And I took a little bit of a deeper look at this, and I looked at all goalies that had played at least 600 minutes this season. I filtered that with Natural Stat Trick, and I got to see out of the 71 goalies who ranked where. And I looked at shots against per 60, and wouldn't you know it, 2 of the top 5 players that faced the highest shots against per 60 out of the goalies that played 600 minutes this year were Columbus Blue Jackets guys, being Daniil Tarasov and then Elvis Merzlikins. So looking at those 2, they are just getting peppered a lot out of the guys that are the more starter-ish, or just guys that get a lot of time in the league. So you're seeing that. On top of that too, they didn't face a lot of rush attempts against per 60, but looking at NHL Edge, I already kind of had an idea in my mind, and I'm assuming that this kind of backs it up. They spend more time as a team in their defensive zone than other teams. So what I'm imagining here is even if teams don't get a lot of rush opportunities against them, if that was the case at least with Tarasov and Merzlikins, they are still being able to set up shop inside the Jackets defensive zone. And when that happens and your guys get fatigued and they just gotta, try to fight the puck and are dealing with teams that are just cycling the puck well and able to string together these passes, probably not going to lead to good things and could help explain why these numbers are so poor for some of their guys. And I got to be honest, the blue line this year is not really what you're hoping for. Provorov is somebody that sticks out that people will probably say, well, we were hoping he could be a big impact guy, a top 10 selection in the draft, 27 years old, somebody that's played a lot of minutes before in Philly, and of course now in Columbus things are not working out well for him. But it's not just him either. Other guys aren't having great years. Boquist was not having a great year either. When he was out there, the team gave out an outrageous amount of shots. And even looking at a guy like Zach Werenski, part of this blue line, Werenski is definitely going to have a higher point total compared to some of these other guys, but still he's more known of an offensive defenseman, and his defensive defensive value and results aren't there. Absolutely aware of the fact that he has to play, a lot of roles and try to help out this team in a different way compared to some other guys like Boquist. But still, if you're getting top-end dollars, you're hoping to get as much value out of these players. And when you're a team that is struggling so much defensively, I think you could point to the defensemen and say, oh, well, this is part of the reason why they struggled. And I do have to be honest here, some of the guys that are playing for them on the blue line especially, probably not going to be there in the long term, as they are not suited to at least face the competition they're facing, probably more in like a second or third pairing role. And that doesn't even include guys that are forwards that aren't providing defensive value. And there are some guys that are definitely like that. That's going to be the case on every team. But in general, this is a team that kind of needs all hands on deck if they're going to be able to get into playoff positioning. Because right now, things aren't just going very well. Now, I'm going to defend this team a little bit. They have the 8th most man games lost according to NHL Injury Viz, I believe, on X. If I'm wrong, I will correct that, but they just have had multiple guys miss time. I don't know if Line is included with it because he, is off the ice and dealing with some mental stuff, and I'm hoping that he can, get where he needs to be, whether that's on the ice or off the ice. But there's just some young guys that have been injured as well. Adam Fantilli, Kent Johnson as well. They missed time, and, there's multiple players that are out for the year with injuries. This team is currently dealing with a lot of injuries to Tarasov and Elvis, and they have other guys that are day-to-day, and the injuries for this side, with them probably being a team that was already going to have a hard time getting into the playoffs anyway, doesn't help with what we've seen, especially with these defensive issues, as this blue line has shown probably not going to be suited for a playoff contending team. Now, the good news is, especially looking at the defensemen, the Jackets have taken a lot of younger guys with first-round picks in recent years for the draft. David Jiricek is somebody that sticks out here, as he was the 6th overall selection. He is getting a little bit more time, especially their past 2 games. Now, he's someone that is kind of expected to be part of the future, and I know that he kind of spent some time in the AHL, and things have been a little bit weird for him this season, but these are the players that you're looking at and saying, well, some of them are already getting slid into the lineup, and they could be someone that if they take a step forward next year, that they wouldn't have to be in a third pairing role where they're sheltered. Maybe they get some more minutes, maybe they get some time on the power play, significant time on the power play, and they're able to help not only defensively but offensively, because we've talked about before on this channel, there are teams that will post good defensive numbers, not because they're necessarily good defensive teams, but because they are good offensively. If you are a team that is a good offensive side, you're going to get probably more time in the offensive zone, you're going to score more goals, and you're going to make it a little bit easier for yourself. And I'm not exactly sure what I just ended off saying there for that, but I do know the gist was obviously more time in their zone, less time near yours. You're going to see lower defensive totals or defensive goals against and things like that, and feel better in that situation. So the Blue Jackets have a lot to work on. I think one of the weird things is they are a team that doesn't turn the puck over a lot, and they definitely have turned it over the least in the league in their defensive zone. So there's a lot of things that are going right here. There's a lot of guys that are younger that are trying to learn the ropes. There's some defensemen that are going to be coming in the future. There have been a lot of injuries. There's just been a whole lot of drama. I do think that next season they're going to be able to help out their goalies, and I do think that they might have to make some decisions with what's going on in net, because I still think they do need to make some upgrades. But I do see this team having the capability to improve. Now, this year, I overrank them entirely. I do admit that. Next year, I think they're going to be better, but I am going to be honest with you. The East looks really good. I look at some of those teams that are bad. Some of these sides are still finishing the year hot. Some of these teams also have futures of their own, where they're seeing some of their prospects come in here. So at the end of the day, yes, the goalies for Columbus haven't played well, but there is a whole defensive issue. There's a whole lot of other things that have gone wrong for them this season. Next season, again, I think there needs to be changes made in a variety of positions, and you already know that there's going to be different lineups. And like I just read from The Athletic, there's been a ton of line combinations that they have used this season. Just a crazy year for the Jackets. Next year, we will see if it gets any better, but I'm still not convinced that this Ohio-based team is going to make the playoffs next season. Really just curious to see how these young guys develop and play and get more time. Forwards, of course, are all getting more minutes, and I'm excited to see what next year provides for them, whether it is good or bad, as long as the kids get to play, as they say. Anyway, what are your thoughts on the Blue Jackets this year? Is it all on the goalies? Is it partially the team? Is it both? Want to know what you have to say. Leave your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. We're close to 700. Got the playoff previews coming out later this week. Everybody, please make sure to stay safe. Have a great night. And Eagle of Hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.